And welcome once again to Wayne's World. I'm Wayne Dawson. He has been a Fox 8 fixture for more than 4 decades, heading up the sports department in his hometown. He may have retired a few years ago, but he's still around as we get ready to start yet another season of the award-winning show, Friday Night Touchdown. Please welcome the one and only John Telich.
How are you, my friend?
How are you?
So great to see you.
Always good to see you, man.
It's always
It
good
takes
to
me
see you.
back to the first time that I ever met you.
Yeah, a million years
That
ago.
was, I think, the year was 1980.
Yeah.
I was in my trainee year.
Yep.
And they hired John Telich from Buffalo, right?
I was in Buffalo the previous 2 years.
And
to
they
that.
hired John as the weekend sports anchor.
Yes.
And the rest is history, my friend.
I never left. They said, and I was really fortunate because, first of all, Virgil hired me, and,
Yes.
and we've spoken so many times about what a great influence Virgil was on so many of us. And, you know, I'm just working in Buffalo, New York. I'm a Cleveland kid. I'm coming home, as many instances of those 2 years in Buffalo, just bugging all the news directors.
Okay.
Hey, I'm a kid from Euclid.
Yeah.
Hire me, please. You know, and I never thought I'd have a chance to work in Cleveland, Ohio. And so I then, when I was in Buffalo, there was a news director at the competing station, Bill Applegate. He recently passed away. May he rest in peace.
Yes.
And Bill went to San Francisco, and he was the news director of a station in San Francisco, and he had an opening for a weekend sports guy. And he called me and he said, I want to consider you, because he liked my work at the competing station. And so he said, but I have another guy who's got a little bit of a leg up on you. He has major market experience, so I'm going to fly him out. If he turns out to be the right hire, I'll be in your camp if you need any recommendations. So I said, thank you, Mr. Applegate. That's so kind of you. So 2 weeks later, was wondering what was going on with that. I get a call from Tony Ballou. He was the assistant. Yeah, he was the assistant news director to Virgil here at Channel 8. And he said, how'd you like to come home, to be on the air, to do the weekend sports at Channel 8 here? Back then, we were, you know, CBS, WJKW. Oh, Mr. Ballou, this is fantastic. This is a dream come true. I said, but if you don't mind me asking, you have a weekend sports guy, Fred McLeod.
Fred McLeod.
What's the story with Fred McLeod? And he said, he just got a job in San Francisco. He was the guy that got the job in San Francisco that opened the door for me to come to Channel 8. So, and then Fred and I were great friends, media colleagues, as it were, for many years, all the way up until when he passed away in 2019.
An amazing man.
Yeah.
A wonderful, wonderful man, no
He
doubt.
was, yes.
Now, I'm trying to think, who was the main anchor back then, the sports guy? Was it Mule?
It was Jim Mueller. Jim Mueller was our sports,
Yeah.
he was the head of the sports department. He really showed me the ropes.
Yes.
I've spoken a lot about what a great influence he was with me for only 7 to 8 months, from September of 80 till somewhere in March of the next year. He left Channel 8.
And when he left, what happened?
When he left, they made me
you the main guy.
They made me the sports director and anchor, and then we hired Casey Coleman to come on and do. He did commentaries, and then eventually Casey grew into more of a bigger role, and we had Danny Coughlin. We also absorbed from his internship the incredibly talented Vince Cellini. And Vinny came to us, and so we had this, and Joe Castiglione was with us. We had a baseball Hall of Famer.
That's for sure.
He's a baseball Hall of Famer. Vince Cellini, tremendous on all fronts. Casey was as acerbic and as witty and as funny. And then I haven't even mentioned the leprechaun himself, Daniel Francis Coughlin.
Oh my gosh.
Had what an amazing sports.
And you guys were together at that point.
We were together. We did so many stories, and I traveled so much, and Casey and I did a lot of specials. Gosh, did we have great times. But it was kind of in the 80s when the Browns were starting to be really big and the Cavs had their ascension, Michael Jordan shot, all of those things happened in those years, and we had all of us together at Channel 8. And then Vinny left. There was no room for Vinny to move up here, and he was so talented, but he got an opportunity to go. He made his own way, and he went to CNN. The rest, they say, is history. But we had an amazing sports department.
And then Tony Rizzo rolled in there.
And Riz rolled in from, you know, when the Browns were big in the Bernie years, Rizzy was a young kid right out of college doing radio with John Lanigan. And so in the mid-90s was when Rizzy came to us, at 96, I believe, 96, 97. And then Rizzy came here, and just, like
I
Mount
remember
Vesuvius.
the first time he auditioned.
Yeah.
It was the wildest audition I've ever seen.
Was it the one where he's wearing a wetsuit?
Yes. Because he did it with I was doing weekends
Yeah.
at the time, and he did it with us. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm
What's
like,
this guy
who's this guy? And they hired him,
And Rizzy and I had so much fun because here was the deal. Rizzy was always either way high or way low because he was a fan, and the key word is fanatic.
Yes,
And that's how he wore his emotions on the sleeve. So I remember the news director saying, we're going to put you on with Tony. So I was kind of like, keep him at an even equilibrium as best as possible. He'd fly off the handle once in a while. We had so much fun with those guys.
Oh my gosh. Well, to talk about Danny Coughlin.
Okay.
What's your most memorable moment with Danny Coughlin?
Well, Danny, I met him. I'm working in the Buffalo TV station. I'm covering the Winter Olympics, the miracle on ice in 1980. And I meet this sports reporter, sports writer from the Cleveland Plain Dealer, whom I read all the time, Daniel Francis Coughlin. And we hit it off immediately. He was so much fun with me, so much fun towards me. And so, gosh, there's so many great stories with Danny. He would hold court in the newsroom. Back in those days, everybody was smoking, so the newsroom you could barely see from one end to the other.
Right.
But even then, he would say, "I got to go out to the back door and have a cigarette." And he would have a cigarette, and everybody would come by, and he would just continue telling us stories about, he used to have big battles with Doug Deacon. They were all like practical joke battles.
Okay.
Like Doug went away. At one time and came back, and Danny had put a couple of goats in his garage.
And Doug Deacon also worked with us too, part-time.
And Doug Deacon worked with us. And then Danny went away when he got married to Maddie in the early 80s and came back, and there were mirrors on the ceiling of his bedroom. So, but Danny was great. Do you remember Gerald, the Ice Cube McNeil?
Oh, yeah.
He came to the Browns. He was one of the more exciting players the Browns had in the Bernie years in the 80s. And he was a little guy, and he was signed, I think, from the USFL or something.
Kickoff returner, right?
Yeah, he was a kickoff returner.
And a wide receiver.
And a wide receiver. He did catch some passes. But we're in the locker room over in Berea. The facilities were connected with Baldwin Wallace way back in the day, not the facility we know now that the Haslams run. And we're in the locker room, and they just got Gerald McNeil, and the media guide said 5'9", 155 pounds. And
So
Danny just in the middle of the locker room says, "Gerald McNeil." He goes, "It says you weigh 155 pounds. I don't believe it. Come on over here." Now,
He said that, right?
You can't even do that today. I mean, in those days, Gerald was like, "Sure." He walks over. There was one of those big scales, Toledo, the big. And he stood on it. I think he weighed 138 pounds.
Are you kidding me?
And he was playing in the National
Football
and
League.
very good.
It was very, very good.
Yeah.
How has you've been gone for a couple of years?
Yeah.
But when you first started, and when you retired, how had the situation changed as far as relationship with the players?
Sure, it's definitely evolved because the players have taken on more ownership of their own voice.
Okay.
And the teams have also been more proprietary in how they siphon out or push out what the players have to say. There's not as much availability. Back in the 80s, let's say, I could go to Cavs practice. I could, watch the whole practice, which you can't do today.
Okay.
You were only allowed to watch them take free throws in the last 10 minutes. So I saw Mark Price and Kevin Johnson going at it every day in practice. And those were great things. And Lenny Wilkins allowed us to be there. And then, there was a confidence level that you had built amongst the reporters and the management of the team, as it were. And so you had more access back in the day. There were fewer of you because there was only 3 TV stations in the 80s. And then now there's a million more outlets. And the players, because of podcasts, the Kelsey brothers, there's many athletes that have podcasts now. They are able to kind of put out their message or their essence of who they are a little bit more on their terms, maybe speaking with their own peers. Because they feel more comfortable talking football. Like, LeBron does a podcast he used to do it with the current coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. Now he does it with someone else, but a great player in his own right, in Steve Nash. But it's LeBron's message. And I think LeBron had something to do with the shifting of that. Maverick Carter started uninterrupted. It was a platform for the athletes, by the athletes, and that's where things kind of tilted more towards the players having more ownership into what gets out and how it gets out.
Do you miss it at all? Do you miss the covering of the teams? How closely do you follow sports today?
I don't follow it as much as or as tightly as I did before. There's so many instances where I'm out in the public and someone will say, boy, it's a shame. What are they doing with the catcher of the Guardians?
Right.
And I'll almost have to say to them,
who is
catch
he?
me up. No, catch me up on what you're referring to. What's the latest drama?
Yeah.
Of course, every day there's drama on social media. I'm not far from that. I still do hop on there and look at things, whether it's an Instagram or a Twitter or whatever. But I don't follow, the comings and goings as much as I did before. And then I don't, because of that, freak out as much or have my blood pressure get high because I'm worried about missing out on, the scoop or trying to get the interview with the player that they just signed.
I always
that
wondered,
stuff's gone.
As a journalist, sports journalist, is it possible to separate yourself from being a fan and a journalist?
It's a real difficult thing to do. I always prided myself on being a reporter, maybe known as the guy who's on the fence and would give you both sides, and you were intelligent enough to make up your own mind. And that's kind of mostly how I operated through my career. But the shift in the media, the general sense of the media came in the last 20, 25 years to what is your take, as opposed to what's going on.
Interesting.
What is your take? And there's nothing against that. I think it's great. I think opinion is all part of the potpourri of what we put into what sports is today. But I always tried to stay away as much as possible. Oftentimes I'd get put on blast and say, give us, they're going to win or they're going to lose. I would certainly give my opinion.
Just like a few minutes ago in the newsroom, what do you think the Browns are going to do this year?
Yeah, and
John?
I said I'm not super optimistic, But so, that's how it shifted, I think, from more of the who, what, when, why, and the ethics of journalism to now it's a lot of it is opinion based, and that's all well and good.
You ever thought about doing a talk show, radio talk show, something like that?
Not necessarily a radio talk show. I mean, you know that I do a pod, and I think the beauty of doing a podcast is I can really dig deep into the story of an individual and talk to you. I remember I had you on a couple of years ago.
Yes, you're going to have me on again, too.
And I'll have you on
I
again. And you got a little bit to tell me about. But back then you were talking about how you prepared to preach and what were your ethics to that and how you got into, you wanted to be a sports writer, right? Or sportscaster.
That's why I got into the business.
Yeah.
I wanted to be you.
Yeah. Oh, God bless you. Well, you know what? I always say that, gosh, I got to do what I did for so many years in my hometown.
Now, when
and you're the same way.
I'm the same way. Okay, I know I want to take a break in a second, but let me ask you this: when did you decide I want to do sports journalism?
Well, when I was in college, and I was really active as like the day-to-day sportscaster there, and that's when I said, when I get out of Ashland College, can never speak enough about the great people at Ashland. When I got out of Ashland College, I wanted to be a day-to-day sportscaster and tell sports stories. I wanted to be Jim McKay, not necessarily Gib Shanley, but I wanted to be Jim McKay. You're here at the Olympics. I'm setting the scene for you and cover sports in that way.
Interesting. Now, you went to Euclid High. Did you play sports in high school and college?
I was prohibited because I had problems with my back from playing contact sports until only my senior year. And I played football for Euclid High School my senior year. And then when I went to college at Ashland, I flirted with playing lacrosse for a while, but I was so busy with radio and TV that I made the decision very early that athletics in that sense was over and being involved in your major was more important.
Chatting with John Telich, JT. We'll have a lot more when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Wayne's World. I'm Wayne Dawson. If you're just joining us, we are chatting with John Telich, JT, sportsman extraordinaire. We worked together for over 40 years, John. My goodness, I tell you what, man, much respect to you, man. And for my money, You're the best.
Oh, I really appreciate you saying
You
that.
are.
That's really kind of you. And I think I mentioned before, just so blessed to be able to, I remember going to Cleveland Municipal Stadium as a kid with my father, or getting on hopping on the buses and getting down to the stadium to see games and following the sports teams, and then knowing that one day, not only would I get a chance to cover them, that I would be someone that people look to get their, what went down in that game itself, and to tell the story about the game, or the personalities or the individuals that had a lot to say about that. And that's been the beauty of what I was able to do.
Your favorite moment, your most favorite moment, interview or whatever in your 40 years, what would you say?
Wow. Well, I did interview when I was in Buffalo. I interviewed Muhammad Ali, so that was a huge treat of mine. But
A one-on-one.
One-on-one
Nice.
came there, and that was just a beautiful moment for me. But here I would say, you want to see your teams do well, as much as you're on the fence, but you want to be as impartial as possible. To be in Oakland, California, on that evening when the Cavaliers won the championship, and to be in the locker room and to enjoy that moment while doing my job, of course. That was awesome. And then 2 or 3 days later, the huge parade downtown.
Yes.
That was amazing. And so I always found, Wayne, that it wasn't just the aspect of hoping that a team did well, or you do know that it's a better atmosphere to cover a team when they're doing well, as opposed to when every day is another drama, which has been the Browns in many cases in the past 20, 25 years. But I always enjoyed the aspect of day-to-day, the stories that I came upon, and the individuals who were great, rags to riches types of stories.
Okay.
Kids that really weren't thought to be excellent players, but then they worked, and then they got the chance to be on a team, and then next thing you know, they're on the varsity, and next thing you know, they're going to college. And there's a million of those stories. Justin Hardy from Glenville High School. He wasn't really thought of much when he was at Glenville, but Ted Ginn always said this kid is something special about him. Next thing you know, he becomes a Pro Bowl special teams player.
Now, we all knew LeBron James was going to
We
be
all
great.
knew.
You followed him
A lot, yeah.
Yes.
My career, I would say the 42 years I did day-to-day TV in Cleveland, it was pretty much dissected in half, or cut in half, in the LeBron years. Halfway through is when LeBron kind of materialized before all of us, and then the last 20 years or so of that was LeBron-centric, whether he was here or was in LA, or if he was down in Miami or whatever. But and LeBron was a child of the internet. He was when the internet became big and things like ESPN carried more weight, they hitched their wagon to the fame and the story of this kid who was raised by a single mother in Akron, Ohio. And not only did they expect a lot from him, he is a million times delivered a lot,
really
a lot more.
LeBron or Michael? Who's the GOAT?
I'm going to go with I'm going to go with Michael just on the fact that he had the 6 trips to the title to the series, and
With the
he
same
won.
team.
Yeah, but it's a great. It's kind of like a low-hanging fruit argument for sports talk.
That's very true.
But it's out there.
It's out there.
It's out there.
Your favorite Cavaliers moment?
Wow. There's been so many of them. I would say those Lenny years when they were in the playoffs, and they were, but with each great Cavalier moment, there came a disappointing time, whether it was Michael Jordan, the shot, which was one of the most definitive days of my career. You think they're winning on the Craig Elo shot, and then they lose, and having to cover that. But there were so many instances where, you saw how a team played together, how Brad and Mark and Larry Nance and Hot Rod.
That was a team of destiny.
They were a team of destiny, and of course our buddy Ron Harper. They were fantastic. And so I had so many great memories just covering those guys on a day-to-day basis.
And not to mention the championship.
Not to mention the championship.
All right, this may be more difficult for you.
Uh-oh.
Favorite Browns moment?
Oh boy, I would say, okay, probably the most thunderous moment was when the Browns beat the Jets. This was the year that they, the next week, lost to John Elway due to the drive.
Yeah, yeah.
But the previous week, people don't remember, they were down with 5 minutes to go, about 10 points to the New York Jets. They were dead and gone. I'm on the sidelines. Hanford Dixon runs by me after Freeman McNeil of the Jets scores a touchdown, and he's unloading every bad word that God ever created because he's upset. And yet, one thing leads to another. They come back and they win the game in double overtime. That's about as thunderous as I have seen. And there were a lot of folks that were trying to get back in the stadium. Now, probably the most thunderous sound I ever heard at a game or stadium was last year, but not working it. I was at the playoff game with the Yankees with my daughter Courtney when they got the home run from Big Christmas, and then the Big Christmas hit the home run, then they got the clutch walk-off home run. I've never heard that place as loud as it was. That
biggest moment for with the Indians/Guards.
Indians/Guards, probably the most sentimental and best moment was when they were in Seattle. I'm working, Casey and I are there, and they beat the Seattle Mariners to go to the World Series in 1995. That was their first ticket to the World Series in so many years, and it was really a great night because there was a lot of sentimentality that was going into our post-game interviews. You know, Casey being the son of Ken Coleman, Casey being so much a part of Cleveland sports lore, myself, the way we covered it. It was a beautiful night on a professional level.
You still do the podcast, which we talked about.
Yeah.
But are you still doing the triathlons? I read somewhere you've done over 100 triathlons.
I did. I went through when I graduated from college, I said I'm going to start running, and then I'm going to have a healthier life, and which is what I pretty much tried to do all these years. So I ran marathons for about 8 to 12 years after college. Then I got into doing triathlons where I did more than 100 of them, including the Ironman like 3 different times. And then about 14, 15 years ago, I got into running ultra marathons out on trails. And I found that to be really the most satisfying because you're pushing yourself even harder than if you're doing a real tough triathlon. You're running 50 miles, or you're running 100 miles in the elements. And you really find out what you're made of when you compete in those types of competitions.
How's the family, man?
Family's been great.
How's the bride?
The bride is the bride. I call my wife Jane. We've been married 49 years. The bride, always have. And we met on a blind date at college, and she thought I was the biggest idiot initially, and I eventually won her over. But yeah, we've been married for 49 years, and I live literally within 10, 12 blocks of work.
Where you
I grew up.
And that's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful
One
thing.
final question. Sure. What was it like working in your hometown on television?
It was great. I'll tell you why, Wayne. My grandfather came over here as a 15-year-old boy by himself, immigrant from Slovenia, didn't know the language that much. He made a great living for his family and then our family as generations come down. And he worked hard every day of his life. But he used to get so much of a kick out of the fact that his grandson was in this box that he didn't really understand. He didn't follow sports. Sports were not his thing. He was out, selling insurance policies and doing good for the community. And that was always the cool thing, that I worked in my hometown, and my grandfather, who I respect and loved so much, and was a great influence on my life, thought that it was a big deal that his grandson did TV. That kind of summed it all up.
We missed you here at Fox 8.
We
really do, man.
Kind of you to say that.
JT, the one and only.
Gotcha, buddy.
Thank you for your time, man.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Talk to you anytime.
Talk to you soon. All right. All right, that is it for this edition of Waynesville. As you know, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, with God's help, it can achieve. Have a good week. See you next time.